After my eldest sister came back, the prince, who had been in love with me for 3 years, suddenly turned against me. He personally fed me an abortion drug and imprisoned me until I died. If you hadn't taken over the princess's identity, she wouldn't have suffered so much. After rebirth, I chose to help them. After the prince lifted my red veil, I was the first to say, "Prince, my elder sister eloped with her lover last night."
1.
Miaoi, I finally married you. Shicheng lifted the red veil in front of me, and King Hung, wearing a groom's suit, stood in front of me. He had long eyebrows that reached his forehead, a smile as bright as the moon, and a truly good-looking appearance. The house was decorated with red ribbons and burning wedding candles. Seeing this familiar scene, I pinched my thigh and came to my senses. Without time to think, he immediately stood up from the bed and knelt on the ground. "Your Highness, my sister eloped with her lover last night. I am just a lowly concubine's daughter of the Liu family. My father and mother were afraid that the prince would blame the Liu family, so they came up with a plan to let me marry in place of my sister." The joy on the man's face froze for a moment. "Do you know what you are talking about? Do you know that the 2 sentences you just said are enough to destroy the entire Liu family?" I nodded calmly, but I had already died once. "Why would you care about the life and death of the Liu family?" "My lord, I did not lie to you. My name is Liu Miaofu. I look 70% like my elder sister, so I was sent here to be her substitute. But even if I had 100 guts, I would never dream of becoming the princess." Prince Hung finally froze, and his cold eyes examined me carefully, as if he wanted to peel me clean. After half an hour, "What a mess!" The man angrily overturned the wedding wine on the wedding table. "Liu Miaoi, no one has ever teased me like this before."
2.
Prince Hung was furious. His face was darker than ink, uglier than ink. He immediately gave orders and sent guards to look for his sister, and at the same time arrested his father and mother for interrogation. Before the banquet in the main courtyard of the palace was over, the prince's father-in-law and mother-in-law were invited to the prince's presence. "Hey, on this wedding night, why doesn't the prince hurry to the bridal chamber instead of looking for us 2 old guys? What's the matter?" As soon as my father finished speaking, he saw me kneeling on the ground. He met the prince's gloomy expression. "I know there is nothing hidden." The prince now knows that he has sent a fake bride. His legs immediately went limp, and he and his stepmother, who was supporting him, knelt down together. Dad's face turned pale, and he was sweating profusely, but he still held on to a glimmer of hope and asked hesitantly, Prince, I wonder what mistake Miaoi made?" "Huh." Prince Hung smashed his father's head with the porcelain cup. "Lu Minda, you dare to deceive the emperor, confuse the truth with the false, and play tricks on me. You are really brave." Dad didn't dare to dodge, and was hit on the forehead, but he ignored the wound and kowtowed to admit his mistake. "My lord, this was all this girl's idea. She wanted to be the princess and replaced Miaoi on purpose." My stepmother knelt down beside me and pinched my arms secretly. "Tell me, did you do this?" They all thought that the prince had discovered my identity and never thought that it was me who took the initiative to expose the truth. I acted timid and frightened, biting my lips and not daring to speak. "That's enough. You still want to deceive me, Liu Gao." King Hung, knowing all this, was naturally extremely angry, not to mention that he particularly hated being deceived. He immediately ordered the servants to slap his stepmother 30 times in the face. I looked at my father and stepmother's gloomy faces and hid the smile in my eyes. In my previous life, I married Prince Hung in place of my elder sister, and my father has been successful in his career ever since. My stepmother was also doing very well in the circle of noble ladies in the capital. But every time I go back to my parents' home, they always say, this is all thanks to their legitimate daughter, so I shouldn't be proud and complacent. My stepmother secretly sent me my stepsister's nanny. She watched over me all the time and made me imitate my elder sister's words and deeds. Under my grandmother's urging, I could only eat half a bowl of rice, and I had stomachaches from hunger every night. It was with the help of this wet nurse that the eldest sister learned of the prince's whereabouts and appeared before him.
"I think I treated them well."
I did everything my father and stepmother asked me to do, and I never treated my stepmother's nanny harshly. But they always thought I was unworthy. After my eldest sister came back, no one thought of me. My father even directly claimed that it was me who eloped with her lover and removed me from the list. I didn't understand it before, but after dying once, I figured it out. It's not that I'm unworthy, but that they stand too high up and treat me like a chess piece, unable to see how I struggle. So, in this life, I want to overturn the chessboard. Since I'm not having a good time, no one else should have an easy time. 3. Just when my father and stepmother were feeling anxious, I suggested a way to find my stepmother. Speak. King Hung held the Buddhist beads in his hand, his voice low and cold. Your Highness, my elder sister has a nanny by her side. She has been with her for more than 10 years and is her most trusted servant. I suspect that my elder sister's secret meetings with her lover in the past must have been helped by this person, especially this time when she ran away from her marriage. If it weren't for the help of the nanny, how could my elder sister disappear in broad daylight? The servants of the Liu mansion are not blind. We only need to interrogate this grandmother. I think we can find out who the lover is and find the eldest sister. As soon as I finished speaking, my stepmother couldn't wait to continue. Yes, 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 Grandma Wu must know. It was she who suggested to me yesterday that the second girl should replace Miaoi. I was stunned, and the anger that had been suppressed in my heart surged up again. At this point, there is still something I don't understand. The idea of substitute marriage has been on the mind of the eldest sister since the beginning. She wanted to pursue love, so I married Prince Hung as the legitimate daughter of the Liu family. When my sister fell in love again, I could take back my status as the princess at any time. Then I replaced my elder sister's previous bad reputation. From the beginning to the end, my father and sister were innocent, and I was just a useful tool. How ridiculous. The prince snorted at his stepmother. This man deserves to die, but you knew about it but didn't report it, and you used this method to fool me, which is an even greater crime. The stepmother, with a face swollen from being slapped, dared not say another word. After the prince gave the order, within an incense stick of time, the guards captured Grandma Wu. Grandma Wu is indeed the loyal servant of her eldest sister, and she insisted that she knew nothing. King Hung said indifferently, "Drag him down and beat him. When he speaks, he stops." After being beaten with 40 boards, Grandma Wu's back was already covered in blood and flesh. She could hardly even scream, and then she hesitantly told the truth about the scholar and where he lived. But before Grandma Wu could relax, Prince Hung said casually, "Behead him with a cane." Ah! Grandma Wu screamed miserably. Dad and stepmother opened their eyes wide and watched the old grandmother, who had taken care of their daughter for more than 10 years, being beaten to death. They were trembling so much that they could hardly stand up straight. Only I feel happy. No one understands what kind of person Prince Hung is better than me. Outsiders say he is gentle and kind, but in fact he has a fickle personality, and the coldness and bigotry of the royal family is engraved in his bones. 4. In my previous life, I followed a poor scholar and lived a hard life for 3 years. The eldest sister finally couldn't stand it anymore and ran back. She deliberately bumped into Prince Heng's carriage and cried, "Prince, I am Liu Miaoi. The person next to you is fake." Facing King Heng's angry gaze, I wanted to explain. But before I could say a word, King Hung had already sentenced me to death. The man who had always been gentle to me suddenly became gloomy and violent. He ignored the fact that I was 7 months pregnant and directly grabbed my neck with a fierce look on his face. "You lied to me. I hate it most in my life. You deserve to die." I suffocated and passed out. When I woke up again, I was locked up in a remote and cold courtyard in the palace. My elder sister appeared in front of me, with the prince on her arm. She was already wearing the gorgeous clothes of a princess, with golden hairpins and earrings, all of which were gorgeous and noble. The eldest sister raised her chin and said, "Fakes are fakes after all. It is a foolish dream for a lowly concubine like you to dream of replacing the princess. But who makes me kind? Because of our years of sisterhood, I won't kill you. My elder sister felt that she had lived through 3 years of hardship and that I had enjoyed the good times for her, so she wanted me to pay her back 1,000-fold. Rather than killing me outright, she preferred to torture me by cutting my flesh with a blunt knife. She said, "Since my sister likes the palace so much, then you should live here from now on and never leave." "What do you think, Your Highness?" The eldest sister glanced at Prince Hung with a smile. I groaned with difficulty in my throat, but my neck was pinched purple and I couldn't say anything. My abdomen was aching slightly, and my body was showing signs of miscarriage. I could only hold my stomach and look at this man pleadingly. King Hung didn't even look at me. Miaoi is really kind-hearted. Prince Hung scratched his eldest sister's nose lovingly. He used to do this to me often. But his attitude changed instantly overnight. He became extremely friendly to his eldest sister, as if the person who had really been with him for 3 years was his eldest sister. "She stole your identity and pretended to be my savior, yet you spared her life." Miaoi is truly a kind-hearted person. There was a flash of surprise in my elder sister's eyes, and she quickly understood what was going on. She looked at me with a hint of fear. But he quickly covered it up, and King Hung didn't notice anything and continued coldly, "I will now personally teach you how to treat your enemies." As he spoke, King Hung asked his servant to bring a bowl of abortion medicine. He pinched my jaw and poured it into my mouth himself. As the man poured the medicine into her mouth, he spoke slowly, "If you want to make your enemy suffer, then make him lose the thing he cares about most. I know that besides glory and wealth, the thing you care about most is the child in your belly. It's ridiculous that I once got jealous of a child. Now, I will never allow my child to be born in the womb of a lowly person like you." A tearing pain came from my abdomen, and I rolled around helplessly on the ground, holding my stomach. "But I am the one who saved you." 5. During the more than 10 years of imprisonment, I have hoped countless times that King Hung would appear again. Tell him that it was me who saved him in Puning Temple. But until my death, I never saw King Hung again. I don't want to be entangled with him anymore in this life. I just want to leave the palace and live a free life. Since my sister is willing to be the Princess of Hung, I will fulfill her wish in advance. It also saved her from suffering for 3 more years. Now that they knew who the scholar was, the search became much faster. Within one night, the guards reported that their eldest sister had been found. Prince Hung rushed over and kicked open the door. His eldest sister and the scholar were lying naked on the bed. "Are you so impatient?" I was shocked. In the dead silence, King Hung raised his hand, drew his sword, and stabbed the man on the bed. He was obviously going mad, and his murderous intent was extremely frightening. The scholar was so frightened by this scene that he turned into a fool and dared not move. It was the eldest sister who screamed and stood in front of the scholar. "Don't kill him." The elder sister looked at King Hung stubbornly. "I don't love you at all, and I don't want to be your princess. I just want to stay with my husband Shin forever." "Get out of the way." King Hung suppressed his anger. "No. If you want to kill him, step over my body first." The elder sister gritted her teeth and said firmly. The scholar finally came to his senses. He hugged his elder sister and was very moved. "Miaoi, it is my greatest blessing to marry you in this life." The man knew that he could not escape death. "I, Shun, am definitely not a coward. Your Majesty, you can kill me or mutilate me as you wish. But please let Miaoi go. This is all my fault." He swore sadly. "Miaoi, we are not destined to be together in this life, but we will continue in the next life." I also didn't expect that my elder sister would be willing to risk her life to protect the scholar. In his previous life, his elder sister ruthlessly abandoned him after only 3 years. If the elder sister was here 3 years later, she would probably turn the tables and accuse the scholar of kidnapping and bullying her. 6. This scene shows that King Hung is a bad man who beats the evil one with a stick. King Heng's face turned pale. No one had ever humiliated him like this before. He laughed in anger. "Do you think I dare not kill you?" He immediately pulled his eldest sister away, raised his sword, and was about to attack again. "Your Highness, wait. You want to stop me too?" King Hung looked at me with murderous eyes. I calmed down and stepped forward. Your Highness, there is a saying that the living can never compete with the dead. If you kill Mr. Shin now, I am afraid that my elder sister will never forget him in the future. Why not spare his life? With Mr. Shin in your hands, my sister will be obedient, right? Prince Hing thought for a while with a gloomy face, took a deep breath, suppressed the desire to kill, and said to his elder sister, "If you want him to live, you should come back and be my princess." The elder sister nodded with tears in her eyes. "Okay, I promise you." Prince Heng raised the corners of his lips and revealed a gentle smile. Just when his elder sister breathed a sigh of relief, he raised the tip of his sword. Bright red blood spurted out. "Ah!" Shin Xiaozai wailed. The tendons in both his hands were actually severed. Shenlang. The elder sister was excited and wanted to go forward to see her lover, but was stopped by someone. She could only stare at Prince Heng. "Your Highness has already promised to release Shenlang. Why did you do this again?" A scholar had his tendons cut and could no longer hold a pen. He no longer had any hope in officialdom, which was tantamount to killing him directly. Prince Heng smiled faintly, his white jade face without a trace of sinisterness made people frightened for no reason. "I only promised to spare his life. As for how he lives, it depends on you, princess. He should know that from the moment he took you away, he had to stay away from the official career. I am not a good-tempered person who will let you do whatever you want. Since you have touched something you shouldn't have touched, I can't keep these hands anymore." It is already a mercy of the king to just cut the tendons of his hand. It was only then that the eldest sister seemed to realize that the person standing in front of her was a noble prince. He is a member of the royal family who can decide their life or death with just one word. She shuddered and opened her mouth, but in the end she didn't dare to say anything about finding a doctor for Mr. Shin. I lowered my eyes. Prince Heng knows best how to make someone suffer excruciating pain. Keeping Shin Xiaozai's hand and breaking his tendons gave him a glimmer of hope, but when he could not lift the pen again and again in the future, he would fall into endless pain and despair. The elopement of Prince Heng's wife was kept a secret by Prince Heng, and not a single word of it was heard in the capital. However, Prince Heng's palace had a new group of guards, and the guards who saw the eldest sister and Mr. Shin together that night were secretly dealt with. Prince Heng's ruthlessness is evident, but fortunately, he took his elder sister into consideration and spared the lives of the Liu family. I thought that after I got it back, I could leave the palace and return to the Liu family. I didn't expect that my elder sister's words would make me stay. "I am lonely living alone in the palace, so you can be my maid." 6. I looked at King Heng nervously, my eyes dark, bright, and full of expectation. "Well, I'll stay here to keep you company." Perhaps it was this wedding dress that made King Heng look at me a few more times. He couldn't help but recall the moment of surprise when I lifted the veil on our wedding night. Even though he knew that I wanted to leave, he was inexplicably reluctant to let me go. After all, he could just keep an extra maid. He made the final decision and agreed to my eldest sister. After many twists and turns, I stayed in the palace again. The hatred in my heart spread, and I took a deep breath. Tell yourself to calm down. I didn't enter the backyard of the palace, so I still had a chance to leave. The eldest sister is very flexible. Now that she has been captured, she starts to enjoy the life of a princess. But sometimes when I think of the imprisoned scholar, I can't help feeling sad. Given my elder sister's personality, I'm afraid she will soon be captivated by the splendor and wealth of the palace and forget her love for the scholar. From time to time, I would remind my elder sister and remind her of her past with the scholar. He also bribed a waiter, found the cell where Shin Lang Jun was imprisoned, and gave him a bottle of healing medicine. The waiter also brought a message from Mr. Shin. "Miaoyi, I am already a useless person. I am not worthy of you now. Please forget me and be your princess." After hearing this, my elder sister's heart almost broke. She was almost immersed in the gentleness that King Heng gave her, but suddenly, she came to her senses. The more you can't get it, the more you want it. Prince Heng treats the eldest sister very well, which also encourages the eldest sister's arrogance. She became more bold and unrestrained, and began to send messages to the scholar frequently, and secretly vowed to take Xinlang away from this devil's den.
7.
My elder sister didn't have anyone she could use, so after asking me to deliver her letters several times, she began to trust me very much. Although I bought a small parlor that could deliver mail, I didn't dare to visit him too often. If you are discovered by King Hung by mistake, you'll be dead. Coming back to this life, I naturally want to live a good life. Now I can have a full meal every day and eat whatever I want. I cherish every day now and become more cautious. So 9 out of 10 times when I send messages to my eldest sister, they are false. After so many times, I have become accustomed to Shun Xiaocai's tone. Mr. Shun likes to say some sour words the most. He first expresses his longing for his elder sister, then complains about himself, and then reminisces about the past. Not only did the eldest sister not have any doubts, she also eagerly sent more silver to make Mr. Shin's life better in prison. Naturally, I accepted all this money with a smile, using it as the cost of my future escape. Prince Hing seemed to have forgotten that his eldest sister had escaped from her marriage, and he obeyed her in everything. Every time I look at my elder sister, my eyes are as gentle as spring water. In addition to restricting the freedom of the eldest sister, he also forbade her to step out of the palace. The eldest sister was secretly anxious and tried several times without success. The more anxious you are, the more likely you are to make mistakes. Be patient and wait. King Hung will not lock you up for life. I can wait, but Xinlang can't. How can I be at ease with him being locked up in that cold and dark cell? I was distracted for a moment and suddenly felt a little envious of Mr. Shin, although he was locked up in jail. But there were people who cared about him all the time, sent him medicine and food, and even planned to rescue him. After coming to my senses, I continued to comfort my elder sister softly. Don't be afraid, sister. The opportunity will always come. The elder sister responded with a disappointed look and could only wait patiently. Unexpectedly, we soon had a turning point. Battle reports came from the border that a young general named Yang, who used his military skills like a god, had defeated the Huns' attacks many times. The Huns were defeated one after another, and now Dian has recovered the 16 prefectures of Yenyun. The emperor was overjoyed when he received the news of victory. He ordered a reward for the 3 armies and set up a banquet in the palace to celebrate when General Yang returned. On the day of the palace banquet, Prince Hung brought the princess into the palace, and I followed them. The lights in the hall were bright, and I saw the man standing in the hall at a glance. His body was like a sword drawn from its sheath, sharp and intimidating. Your Excellency Yang is truly a young hero, the emperor praised with a big laugh. If it weren't for you, I don't know how long Dian would have to fight. I have decided to confer you the title of Marquis of Wuhan. As if this was not enough, the emperor waved his hand and said, "If you want anything, you can ask for it. I will definitely satisfy you." Yang Xiu did not reply in a hurry but turned around and looked around. I looked at that tall figure and was caught off guard when my eyes met his. My heart shrank, and I quickly lowered my head. I could feel his gaze lingering here for a long time, so much so that some excited discussions arose around us. For some reason, my throat feels dry. No one could understand my sudden nervousness because Yang Xiu was my childhood sweetheart. Before I entered the palace, he had promised to marry me. However, due to the urgent war at the border, he was away for many years and I got married before him.
8.
After more than 10 years of confinement, I thought I had long forgotten Yang Xiu. I didn't expect that when I saw him again, he was still as vivid and bright as in my memory. The palace became quiet for a while, and then the man Qingyue's steady voice came. I can achieve this feat only because of the support of the officers and men in the army. It is a great honor to be granted the title of Marquis by His Majesty, and I dare not ask for anything else. If you don't dare to ask for it, it means you still have it, but it's not convenient to say it out loud at this time. The emperor was thoughtful and curious. Ha ha ha, I'll remember this for you. If you want anything in the future, be sure to ask me. Yes. The palace banquet began, and I had no time to pay attention to that. While no one was paying attention, the eldest sister deliberately spilled the wine and told Prince Hung that she was going to change her clothes. Prince Hung glanced at her, and the eldest sister couldn't help but tighten her embroidery handkerchief nervously, but the man didn't say much and just nodded lightly. My elder sister showed a look of delight and immediately took me and the palace maids out. When we arrived at the chamber, my elder sister asked the palace maids to guard the door, and I changed clothes with her. I wore her princess dress, and she wore my maid's clothes. We look 70% alike. After changing clothes and putting on makeup, it's really hard to tell the real one from the fake one. The woman in the mirror was elegant and beautiful. She reminded me of myself as a princess in my previous life. I was a little dazed for a moment. My elder sister kept staring at my face. Suddenly, she pinched my face with quite a bit of force, leaving a red mark on my face. I just realized that my sister has a face that is as pretty as mine. When my sister puts on this dress, she looks more impressive than me, the princess. Due to the habit from my previous life, I straightened my back unconsciously after putting on the palace dress and naturally looked more aura than my elder sister who had just become the princess. I bent down, put away the serious expression on my face, and said timidly, "Clothes make the man, and the saddle makes the horse. It's just that my sister's clothes are too gorgeous." My elder sister snorted coldly and took out a handful of peanuts for me to eat. I am allergic to peanuts, and I developed a rash on my face soon after eating them. Now, even if I were to be placed in front of my father and stepmother, they would not recognize me. Seeing that I was well behaved, my elder sister was satisfied. She dusted some dust on her face, then opened the door anxiously. "Oh no, the princess has a rash. Go find the doctor." The palace maids immediately became panicked, and the eldest sister quickly left. She wanted to find her mother and ask her for help. The stepmother had only this one child, and she had always doted on her since she was a child, and had always given in to her in everything. Hearing her elder sister's bold plan, she was horrified. "Meowie, why are you doing this? Isn't it better to just be our princess? If we are discovered, it will be a grave crime that will lead to the confiscation of property and extermination of the entire clan." The elder sister threatened to die, holding the golden hairpin against her neck. "Mother, without Shinlang, I don't want to live anymore. If you don't help me, I will die right in front of you." The stepmother shed tears and seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. She sighed dejectedly and finally agreed. On the other side, after the imperial physician took my pulse and prescribed some medicine, I sent the remaining palace maids away. He ordered one of them to boil the medicine and another to report back to King Hung. Finally, he found an excuse to send the last palace maid away. Then he waited quietly for his elder sister to come back. After a stick of incense, the vermilion door was pushed open with a creak. I looked up and my eyes suddenly widened. An unexpected person appeared in front of me.
9.
We stared at each other in silence. "Meow Fu." The man suddenly spoke, breaking the quiet atmosphere. My fingertips trembled slightly. I had a lot to say, but when the words came to my lips, I didn't know what to say. Is to ask him why he is here? I still asked him why he recognized me, at first sight. This actually doesn't make any sense because in my previous life, he recognized me at first sight. According to the timeline, Yang Xiao should have been still fighting. It was not until 3 years later that he defeated the enemy and returned to the capital. At that time I was Princess Hung, and everyone thought I was Lu Miaoui. But he knew at first sight that I was Lu Miaofu. I don't know how he managed to see me. He looked at me stubbornly with red eyes and asked me how I became the Princess of Hung. I knew I was indebted to him, so I deliberately belittled myself, saying that I loved a life of wealth and splendor, and now that I was of noble status, I asked him not to bother me. Yang Xiao stood there in confusion and loneliness. A few days later, I heard that he had gone to the border again. Although I am not the Princess of Hung, I still dare not face him. I can only purse my lips and say, "Congratulations to General Yang for engraving the stone on Yanran and returning with a great victory." "You?" Yang Xiao stretched out his hand, wanting to touch me, but he pulled it back halfway and just smiled, You are still so hypocritical. I wondered, what? When you lie, you always pretend to be calm, but you dare not look me in the eye. Miaofu, I'm back, and I know you are too, right? What he said suddenly made my scalp tingle for a moment, and I stood up immediately. The voice was a little hoarse due to the violent ups and downs of emotions. You are also reborn? No wonder Yang Xiu defeated the Huns so early in this life. Yes. Yang Xiu nodded gently. Although I went to the border again after that unpleasant parting in my previous life, I died not long after due to the recurrence of my old illness. After that, I don't know why I didn't go to the underworld to reincarnate, and my soul continued to wander in the mortal world. I missed you so much that I returned to the capital to stay by your side. My eyes were slightly hot. So, you saw everything that happened afterwards? Yes. I watched you suffer and tried countless times to take you away from the palace, but I couldn't even touch you. I could only watch you die. I hate my own incompetence over and over again. I hate why I believed your lies, abandoned you to go to the border, and let you face their torture alone. Niao Fu K 0622". If I had been more careful, I could have saved you. The man walked forward step by step and hugged me gently. His movements were so gentle, as if he was hugging a fragile piece of porcelain. My tears suddenly flowed out of control, and my throat felt like it was blocked by cotton. I could no longer maintain my sanity. A buzzing sound started in my head, and the blood rushing through my body seemed to be shouting in celebration. After a while, he regained consciousness and asked belatedly, "How is your body now? Are you still injured?" As he said this, he became anxious and wanted to take off his clothes to look at his wounds. Yang Xiu held my hand and said, it's okay. I had experience from my previous life and was able to obtain intelligence on the Huns in advance. This time the battle went extremely smoothly, and I was not injured. I felt relieved when I saw that he didn't look fake. There were footsteps coming from far away outside the door. Yang Xiu hugged me and handed me a whistle. I will send someone to contact you. I will help you no matter what you do. Don't be afraid. I will rescue you and marry you openly. I was a little hesitant because I was so unstable in my previous life. Yang Xiu was still as sunny and beautiful as before. But after 10 years of imprisonment, my heart was filled with resentment, hatred, and pain. These negative emotions are rolling and screaming in my mind all the time. Am I really worthy of him when I am so ugly? I lowered my head and tightened my whistle. The door closed gently, then opened again a little later. Miaowie, I heard from the palace, maid, that you have a rash. Why are you looking down? Do you have a rash on your face as well? Let me see it.
10.
It's King Hung. I calmly put the whistle into my sleeve, raised my face, frowned, and said sadly, there are so many rashes on my face, and now I am still at the palace banquet. How can I face people later? Thanks to the teachings of Grandma Wu in my previous life, it was easy for me to imitate my eldest sister's voice. King Hung looked at my face carefully and said with a smile, not ugly, these rashes look very unique, just like red plums painted on your face. I actually think you look better than before. I rolled my eyes at him. Your Highness only knows how to coax me. Such a natural and familiar attitude made King Hung startled. Why does it feel like you are being coquettish with me? I felt so disgusted that I almost vomited. I wonder if King Hung has poor eyesight and didn't see my indecent action. I could only answer him perfunctorily. Your Highness, if you say so, then so be it. King Hung saw that my eyes were red and there were wet stains at the corners of my eyes and thought that I was in a bad mood. Don't mind my bad attitude. Instead, she took me aside and comforted me and asked the palace maid to find a mask to bring over. After a while, the medicine was ready and the eldest sister was late. Fortunately, she was quick-witted and came over with a plate of preserved fruits. I didn't know what illness Prince Hung had, but he suddenly wanted to feed me medicine himself. He carefully blew the medicine on the spoon and passed it to my mouth. I really want to throw this bowl of medicine away. He must be sick. This medicine is so bitter. Can't you let me drink it spoonful by spoonful? Can't you wait until it cools down and let me drink it in one gulp? Maybe it was because he met Yang Xiao and knew that he could help him. The huge stone that had been weighing on my heart was removed. I felt a lot more relaxed all of a sudden, and I actually started to curse in my heart, and then drank the bitter medicine with a blank face. After I finished drinking, King Hung carefully wiped my mouth with a handkerchief. Then he reached out. Candied fruit. But after waiting for a long time, the man still didn't put the thing down and glanced at his elder sister coldly. The eldest sister shuddered and hurriedly put the entire plate with the preserved fruit into Prince Heng's hands. Prince Heng frowned and said critically, "Why are you so clumsy today, my illegitimate sister? How can I serve you well if you don't know how to behave? It's better to send him to the tutor and learn some manners before coming back." I quickly tried to smooth things over. "Your Highness, my sister is naturally stupid, but she has a kind personality and I like her very much, so I was less strict with her. Your Highness, please forgive my sister this time. I will definitely discipline her more in the future." King Heng scratched my nose and said lovingly, "Okay, I'll do as you say." I got goosebumps. The eldest sister stared blankly at the side. Although Prince Heng had been very good to her these days, he had never been as intimate with her as he was today towards his concubine sister. She suddenly felt very uncomfortable, as if something belonging to her was being taken away. There was a moment when she wanted to wipe the dust off her face and tell Prince Heng that she was his princess. The next moment, she thought of poor Shen Lang in prison and quickly suppressed the impulse. I don't know why Prince Heng is so clingy. Until I returned to the palace, I never found a chance to switch back with my eldest sister. At night, Prince Heng even stayed overnight. We sat on a bed, and I was thinking of ways to get King Heng away. After hesitating for a long time, Prince Heng spoke first. "I don't know why, but the princess is particularly attractive today." Prince Heng pressed his chest, where his heart was beating with excitement. He said, "I have been having dreams recently. In my dreams, we are very affectionate, and you did not elope with Mr. Shen. Then one day you told me that you were pregnant. I was so happy that I couldn't help but pick you up and spin you around. Although I couldn't see your face for some reason, I knew it was you." Prince Heng suddenly stroked my cheek. His eyes were gentle and soft. "Princess, forget about Mr. Shen. Let's have a child together." I turned my head away to avoid his movements. "My lord, I am still sick." King Heng hit a soft nail and was immediately a little angry. He raised his voice and said, "You don't want to do it, but are you still thinking about this person in your heart? How is it that I am inferior to this poor scholar? If you like love poems, I can do it too. Why can't you just look at me a little more?" An emotion called jealousy surged in his chest. It was clear that before this he was just angry that the princess was not polite and hurt his face. But today, he could not tolerate the princess thinking about that scholar, and murderous intent flashed in Prince Heng's eyes. I frowned. "You're overthinking it. Your Highness should go to the study and calm down. I need to rest now." Prince Heng became even angrier in an instant. "Is she trying to get me to leave?" He took a deep breath, afraid that he would lose control and hurt the princess, so he turned around and slammed the door. I watched the man's back as he left, and the light in my eyes dimmed gradually. King Heng also began to have memories of his past life. I must speed up my plan to leave the palace. 11. After the palace banquet, the relationship between Prince Heng and his eldest sister became much more tense. Because of what I said that day, Prince Heng suddenly went to take out his anger on Mr. Shen. He was beaten half to death with a whip. When the eldest sister found out, she burst into tears out of heartache. She immediately stopped hesitating and decided to take Mr. Shen away as soon as possible. Otherwise, if we continue to wait like this, Prince Heng will not know what torture to use to torture Shen Lang. Half a month later, the eldest sister asked the prince that she wanted to go to the temple to burn incense and worship Buddha. Prince Heng couldn't help but recall the experience of being rescued at Puning Temple. He hesitated for a moment and also wanted to ease the recent tension between him and the princess, so he smiled and agreed. "Then let's go to Puning Temple. We also formed a bond in this temple, so it's a good opportunity to return and fulfill our vows." Although the eldest sister was puzzled that she had not met His Royal Highness Prince Hung in Puning Temple, she did not think much about it. She was planning a shocking murder in her mind. Yes, in order to be able to be with Mr. Shin, the eldest sister decided to hire an assassin to kill Prince Hung. Then he took advantage of their unpreparedness and escaped with Shun Xiaozai. I applaud her bold plan. The relationship between my elder sister and Mr. Shin is truly stronger than gold. Such a good opportunity. I quickly packed my package. I was just waiting for the day when my eldest sister would worship Buddha and then escape with her. I also contacted Yang Xiao and asked him to help me prepare a new identity in advance. Of course, it was only mine, and I didn't remind my elder sister to prepare her identity and travel permit. After all, no one would care if a little maid died. But the disappearance of the princess and her lover Shin Xiaozai together would inevitably attract attention. I have no doubt that the prince will soon capture my eldest sister again. With my help, my elder sister and stepmother delivered several letters, and of course Yang Xiao was there to clean up the mess. 3 days later, the eldest sister had prepared everything. The prince accompanied her to Puning Temple. Along the way, the eldest sister kept paying attention to the surrounding roads and planned where to escape. Prince Hing seemed to have sensed something strange. He held his elder sister's hand tightly, narrowed his eyes, and said unhappily, "Princess, why are you distracted all the time? Do you not like me accompanying you? Or are you thinking about someone you shouldn't be thinking about?" The elder sister laughed. "No, I just haven't been to Puning Temple for a long time. I felt that the incense in the temple seemed to be much more prosperous than before, so I took a few more glances. Well, because I donated several hundred taels to this temple, Puning Temple was renovated, and more pilgrims came to burn incense." The eldest sister hummed in confusion, not caring why the prince suddenly donated such a large sum of money to this unknown little temple. Seeing that she had been fooled, she breathed a sigh of relief. While burning incense, I knelt before the Buddha and prayed devoutly, asking the Buddha to bless me so that I could escape safely. As planned, the eldest sister found an excuse to stay overnight in the temple. In the middle of the night, the temple was silent. Dark clouds blocked the moonlight, and in the darkness, several assassins sneaked into the private room. 12. There's an assassin. Prince Hung immediately came to his senses, picked up the dagger under his pillow, and blocked the attack. He had experienced many assassination attempts and only heard sporadic movement, and immediately shouted out. Guards swarmed in, and the monks who heard the noise in the temple also hurried over, and lights were quickly lit. The assassins tried to get close to King Hung several times, but were stopped each time. After fighting for a while, both sides suffered injuries. Then, the assassins made a retreat, grabbed the eldest sister in the corner, and ran away. "Princess!" I shouted several times when I saw this. "The princess has been abducted." Then he ran after him in panic. Puning Temple is on the top of the mountain. Halfway through the run, I pretended to be exhausted and twisted my ankle, then rolled down the hillside. King Hung was so anxious to chase the assassin that he turned a deaf ear to my screams. Several assassins took the eldest sister to a cliff. After exchanging glances with the eldest sister, they threatened the King Hung, who came over. "King Hung, we only want her life. We give you a choice. If you commit suicide, we will let her go. Otherwise, we will throw this woman off the cliff." King Hung clenched his fists and demanded, "Whose people are you?" The assassin did not answer. Prince Heng's voice was as cold as frost. "The last time I assassinated the king, I tore them apart. If you don't want to follow in their footsteps, then let go of the princess." At the same time, groups of guards caught up. "Humph, it looks like you're going to give up on this woman." The assassin did not want to get involved, so he threw his elder sister off the cliff and then fled in all directions. Meowie. Prince Hung ran after her in fear, but was stopped at the edge of the cliff by the guards. He could only watch his elder sister fall off the cliff. His eyes were red with anger. "Quick! Go look for it under the cliff." However, little did she know that another group of assassins had already intercepted her elder sister, who was about to fall off the cliff halfway up the cliff. After Prince Hung sent a large number of guards to look for his eldest sister, He took away Scholar Shin while the guards in the mansion were weakened. When the eldest sister and Shin Shiotsai met, they hugged each other with tears in their eyes. Only at the urging of the assassins did they wipe their tears, grab their packages, and run away together. Meanwhile, on the other side, I was rolling on the ground when a strong arm caught me. I blinked and sat up. After seeing who it was, they smiled at each other. Yang Xiao touched the bruises on my face with some heartache. It's just a show, but why are you rolling so hard? There are so many rocks on the mountain. Watch your head carefully. I have arranged assassins to lead everyone away. No one will notice this place. Yes, these assassins were nominally hired by the stepmother, but in fact they were specially recruited by Yang Xiao, and each of them was highly skilled in martial arts. Only in this way can we successfully kidnap the eldest sister and Mr. Shin and complete this play. Otherwise, with the connections of the stepmother, the mistress of the harem, all that would be invited would be some thieves who are all show and no substance. I shook my head nonchalantly. It's no problem. I'm just used to doing things perfectly without leaving any trace of trouble. After hearing this, the pain in Yang Xiao's eyes became more obvious. He helped me up, let me rest aside, and then he brought over a recently dead female corpse. The female corpse's face was completely destroyed, her skull and face were shattered, and it was obvious that she had been badly injured. The female corpse's figure was almost the same as mine, and she was wearing the uniform of a maid in Prince Heng's mansion. Even if the coroner from the Yamen came, he would not be able to tell the truth from the false. You are well prepared. Where did you find this body? If it weren't for Yang Xiao, I wouldn't be able to do it so perfectly. She was a death row inmate who killed her biological father and brother. I used her death to redeem her mother and gave her 100 taels of silver. Yang Xiao replied to me while making the arrangements. After hearing this, I was silent for a moment. Life is not easy for women in this world. The humbler their status, the more suffering they will face. After Yang Xiao finished taking care of the details, he raised his head and felt the breeze blowing through the hair on his temples. The man held out a hand to me. Miaofu, you are free. Free. My throat choked. In my previous life, I had always looked at the square sky, and the freedom I had always wanted but could never obtain was finally realized. I uttered an almost inaudible murmur, then stepped forward and took hold of the hand. 13. Prince Heng searched for his elder sister for 3 days, but could not find her, not even a piece of her body. It was not until he returned to the palace that he discovered that Mr. Shen had disappeared. Why didn't anyone come to report? King Heng was furious. The guards knelt on the ground and bowed their heads humbly. The guards were also transferred to look for the princess. No one is paying attention to the cell. A bunch of rubbish. King Heng smashed the porcelain cup again. He gritted his teeth and said, Lu Miaoyi, you have deceived me again. I will not let you go. When I catch you this time, I will break your legs and kill that adulterer. This assassination was shrouded in doubts, as the assassins said they wanted to kill him. The fight was not fatal. However, Prince Heng was distracted by the princess' fall from the cliff and did not think much about it. At this time, he learned that Mr. Shen was missing. Thinking back to what happened that night, I couldn't help but realize that I was fooled. The assassin's purpose from the beginning was to take the princess away, let her escape, and then take away Scholar Shen in the chaos. Now, they have already reunited and are living together forever. This time, Prince Heng showed no mercy. After finding out that the assassin was hired by his stepmother, he directly raided the Liu family. The eldest sister was isolated and helpless and could only hide from place to place with Mr. Shin. But she couldn't last more than 10 days and couldn't help but move into the inn with Shin Shiotsai. Just after I had a good sleep and a hot meal, King Heng's men showed up. Prince Heng did not let Shin Shiotsai go. He raised his sword and stabbed Shin Shiotsai's heart mercilessly. The man said viciously, I should have killed this adulterer when we first met, so that the princess would know the consequences of humiliating me. He didn't give his eldest sister time to cry. He raised his knife and broke her legs. Then he picked up his eldest sister and said in a gentle voice with a hint of evil, Princess, you can't run away after you lose your legs. The elder sister was so dizzy from the pain that she woke up again. She found that she had lost feeling in her legs and couldn't even walk out of the room. The eldest sister broke down and cried loudly, smashing everything she could touch. She found that what was even more unacceptable than her lover's death was her own loss of freedom. Prince Hung ignored her crying and began to like changing his sister's clothes into different styles. Even though his elder sister had no expression and just let him manipulate her like a puppet, he was very satisfied. But every time he changed his outfit, he would look at his elder sister's face and suddenly feel disappointed, muttering to himself, "No, no, it's not this feeling." He covered his head in pain. "What's wrong? What's wrong?" A hint of sarcasm flashed across the dull eyes of the eldest sister. Sometimes she really couldn't tell whether she was crazy or Prince Hung was crazy. It was not until a month later that my elder sister was diagnosed with pregnancy. "This child is Mr. Shin's." The eldest sister looked at Prince Hung with a calm face, covered her belly, and stepped back in fear. But her legs were weak, and she could only move a few feet. "Princess, how could you be pregnant with another man's child?" Prince Heng's light voice sounded as heavy as 1,000 pounds hitting the eldest sister. The elder sister cried and begged him, "Don't hurt him. This is the only child I have." "Please, I will listen to whatever you say from now on, Your Highness. Can you please let him go?" "No, this bastard cannot stay." King Hung made the judgment coldly. Then he personally brought a bowl of abortion medicine to his eldest sister. The eldest sister struggled violently, and Prince Hung could only pinch her chin and force her to drink the liquid. To Prince Hung, his eldest sister's resistance was like a pet whose life force was held in throes. Little do people know that even pets can bite their owners. After being fed the abortion drug, the desperate elder sister pulled out the hairpin on her head and stabbed Prince Hung hard. Prince Hung dodged but was still wounded in the waist and abdomen. He covered the bleeding wound with an incredible look in his eyes. It was as if he had never expected that a toy would dare to hurt him. 14. "Why," he asked, "if you want a child, I can give it to you. Why did you kill me for this bastard? Why?" "Ha ha ha ha," the eldest sister laughed crazily. "I want to ask why too. Why did you marry me? If it weren't for you, I would have gotten to know Xin Ling very quickly, and then we would have become a loving couple. I would only envy the common people, not the fairies. I was the one who got to know you first. How could you fall in love with someone else?" King Heng's expression was gloomy. He didn't understand why they had come to this point. He clearly wanted to treat the princess well at first. "When I was assassinated in Puning Temple, you saved me. I swear to give you all the beautiful things in this world. That day at the flower viewing party, I recognized the dress you were wearing. You tore off the sleeve to bandage my wound and put a new patch on it." After a long silence, the elder sister suddenly sneered. "So that's how it is. It's actually like that." She clapped her hands and laughed crazily, then looked at King Heng pitifully. "You got the wrong person. I'm not your savior at all. Ha ha ha, you're so pitiful. You married your sweetheart by mistake, but you insist on clinging to a fake me. How could I, a noble daughter, wear patched clothes? That day my clothes were just wet, so I was forced to change into my concubine's clothes." Fate played tricks on her and also played tricks on King Hung. The elder sister continued to mock loudly. "Are you blind or paralyzed? How can you even mistake your lifesaver? Or are you so high and mighty that you look down on my stepsister's lowly status, and therefore have never thought that it was she who saved you?" "Wrong, wrong. I recognized the wrong person." King Heng's brain was like a broken string, repeating wrong, over and over again. He listened to his elder sister's scolding, his eyes reddened as he grabbed her neck and said, "Shut up. Shut up. You shut up." The eldest sister raised her neck in pain. She used up all her strength, and with a bang, she and Prince Hung crashed into the wall simultaneously. The servants outside heard the loud noise inside the house and rushed into the house in a panic. When he saw that both masters had fainted, he quickly went to call the imperial physician. The princess's attempt to assassinate the prince was a shocking scandal. Because the commotion was so big, even the emperor was alarmed. After a careful investigation, Even the fact that Prince Heng's princess eloped was exposed. For a while, the whole capital was discussing it. Even I, who went to the border with Yang Xiao, heard some gossip among the passing caravans. The merchant saw that I was interested and spoke more excitedly. I heard from the imperial physician that the wife of Prince Heng, no, now it is the guilty woman Lu, when Lu attacked Prince Heng, she happened to injure his lower abdomen. It is said that Prince Heng will have trouble with his heirs in the future. The doctors in the palace were all very shrewd people and often did not dare to describe the illness as too serious. If they said that the patient was seriously ill, they were afraid that the patient would be absolutely hopeless. After hearing this, I burst out laughing and couldn't help but praise my elder sister, saying that she did a great job. Another merchant said, however, King Heng suddenly changed his temper. After waking up, he insisted on sending his subordinates to dig up every inch of the mountain near Puning Temple to find the body of a maid. After finding her, she still insisted that it wasn't her. The maid was found dead on the mountain more than a month later. Her body had already decayed beyond recognition. At first, Prince Heng held her tightly and refused to let go, crying and begging for apology. I didn't expect that a few days later he would say he had found the wrong person and wanted to post an imperial decree asking the whole world to help him find a maid. Do you think King Heng is possessed by evil spirits? I understood in my heart that King Heng must be thinking about his past life and couldn't help but be glad that he had escaped so quickly. He also left the capital city, a place full of troubles, with Yang Xiao early on. I just feel uneasy when I think of the woman whose body was left lying on the mountain for a month. Prince Heng recognized that it was a fake and was afraid that he would throw her away again. Since ancient times, people have viewed death as life. Only after death is put into a coffin and buried can the soul be led into the underworld and re-enter the cycle of reincarnation. Others may think this is fake, but Yang Xiao and I both know that the soul really exists. Yang Xiao saw through my thoughts and asked gently, Madam, how about I send someone to collect the body of that woman? I was a little hesitant. Will it cause some unnecessary trouble? My life is too good now. I am afraid it will be exposed easily, so I live very cautiously and dare not make even the slightest wrong step. Don't be afraid. Nothing will happen. He comforted me. I will ask my subordinates to be more careful and let them give up if it is impossible.
Yeah.
I finally couldn't overcome my conscience and agreed. Maybe the more you fear something, the more likely it is to happen. Prince Heng still found it based on some clues. When I saw this man again, I wasn't surprised or scared. Instead, I felt a sense of relief as if a huge rock had been lifted from my chest. Even when the man grabbed my arm and looked at me with a crazy look, mixed with joy and sadness, I looked back at him calmly. King Heng described the wolf. His throat was hoarse as if he hadn't had water for a long time. I finally found you. You are the one I have always wanted to marry. I remembered everything about my past life. We should have been loving and happy and had a child. As he spoke, he shed tears of regret. He used to be so happy, but his eyes were blinded by the anger of being deceived, and he made an irreparable mistake. During the 10 years that Miao Fu was imprisoned, he often missed her and wanted to bring her back countless times. He just didn't want to make his savior sad, and he thought Miao Fu was a despicable liar, so he didn't make up his mind. But in his previous life, when he heard the news of Miao Fu's death, he still regretted it. His heart felt like a blunt knife cutting his flesh, and it was not until then that he realized who he really loved. It had nothing to do with the life-saving grace. He had already developed a deep affection for this person during the 3 years of warm interactions. But he loved without knowing it and killed his lover and their child with his own hands. When he recalled his past life, he found that everything around him had changed. He is still entangled with that vicious woman, and his lover is long dead. Prince Heng went crazy. He couldn't accept that his life would end like this. He examined the body again and finally found evidence that she was not Miao Fu. His wife had a sesame-sized mole on her left shoulder, but this person did not have it. At that moment, he was delighted. Miao Fu was still alive. His wife was still alive. Was she angry that he had recognized the wrong person, so she left him? King Hung held my hand tightly, but looked at me cautiously. Upon closer inspection, he seemed a little humble. He chose his words carefully. "Come home with me. I will compensate you. Our future is still very long." "We have no future." I interrupted him. "I am already Yang Xiu's wife." Prince Heng's face twisted for a moment, but he quickly returned to normal and said anxiously, "I am the prince. You can live a more prosperous life with me, and as long as I ask the emperor, I can let you two divorce." "No, the emperor has personally arranged our marriage. With the imperial decree, no one can separate us." Yang Xiu pulled away Prince Heng's hand that was holding mine. Then he stretched out his fist, knocked him down with force, pinned King Hung to the ground, and beat him severely. In his previous life, he wanted to beat King Hung. It's a pity that we can't kill him. Prince Hung was beaten half to death by Yang Xiu, but the guards arrived in time to rescue him and take him away. I looked at Yang Xiu, who was full of anger. His collar was soaked with sweat because he had hit me so hard. I put a smile on my face again and wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. "Why didn't you tell me earlier that you asked for an imperial decree?" "I have been waiting for Prince Hung to show up. I will defeat him with this imperial edict and make sure Prince Hung is no longer a shadow over my wife. I know that Madam is ill. I want to cure her and calm the pain and anxiety in your heart." He looked at me seriously. It was as if a thick layer of fog had really been cleared from my heart, and light was once again pouring in.